Nice. Well, so Jared cheated. He got me to substitute for him while he was busy. So I guess he thinks I'm not busy, but no, I'm happy to do this. I love it actually. So
Well, you're good
what
at it,
is
man.
what
Awesome.
what do you see? I'm actually concerned as a wrestling fan um for officiating because we just basically doubled the opportunity by adding girls wrestling. And so now you're going to have competing girls tournaments with the boys tournaments, and hopefully they're combined. But we know that it's, there's limited mat space, and I'm not going to get into that. It's hard to have everybody under one roof. But these officials, it's amazing. I've been involved in the sport now about 20 years, just from when my oldest boy started, in kindergarten, and now, doing what I do. And I see the same faces reffing. And I wonder, at the state tournament, I thought to myself, that guy's coming back, and I doubt they get paid a whole lot. I don't know, but I would imagine they're not doing it for the money, is my point. But they come back every year, and I'm worried that if we don't see some younger faces, those guys are going to eventually retire or want to spend more time with their families, or whatever. Or so, is there a massive issue that we aren't really talking about?
Well, I'm talking about it. I hope, I think, but yeah, there is, getting girls, women's wrestling sanctioned is awesome, but it's just the first step. Like, there's so many logistics that coaches even have to figure out, like, where do we practice? Who's the coach? Is it one, locker rooms? There's a lot of things that, yes, we won the victory, but there's a lot of battles still ahead that need to be fought. And yes, now that I'm a little bit more attuned to it, officials are pretty aware this is a problem because it directly affects them. And some of these guys that you say that you see every year and you're like, they're going to retire. Some of them are doing this and they wanted to retire 5, 6, 7 years ago, but they know they can't because wrestling will suffer. And that's not to say they're not doing their best job. Like, their heart's in it even more. But there's sacrificing going on the side of the officials too, right? Not so much as cutting weight and working as hard as a wrestler does, or how many hours coaches, but there's people doing things that they would rather be doing other things just to make sure that these kids get a chance to have the same opportunities that they had. But all we can kind of do, it's like, how do you eat an elephant one chunk at a time, right? So actually this weekend, I'm really, really excited to go to Wrestling Against Autism, because the 2 days leading up to it, Fred Feeney and Dawn Beresford are doing now Fred has done Are You a Duck for a long time, which is, I can't tell you how many people are like, yeah, Fred trained me. I took the Are You a Duck class, because it's a brilliant idea. The thing that's different this year is Dawn Beresford, one of the very few female officials in the state of Ohio, is actually a licensed trainer now. So now she can do classes on her own. And we have 28 people signed up this weekend to become officials, and 5 of them are females. So
nice.
To my knowledge, I think there's no more than 2 or 3 women in the entire state that are licensed officials. We're going to add 5 in 3 days. So I think what we need to do is keep doing cool things like Are You a Duck? Elliot Spence, a guest of my show, not my show, the show, he's got a class the next week. They have 20 something people too. But what I think we really need to do is we need to shine a spotlight on the female officials and get more women to understand I could be an official too. Because we very rarely see these female officials. So if you don't see something, you don't really think that's a possibility. You're just like, oh, I guess you have to be a little bit more than middle-aged man to be a wrestling official. Well, no. A couple of years ago, the OAC paid for the entire women's wrestling team at Tiffin to become officials, and they all did, but a lot of them kept wrestling, right? So you can't officiate when you're wrestling. So we really need to get some of these girls that maybe came out for wrestling later, they haven't been doing it their whole life, fell in love with it, maybe aren't going to get to compete at the D3, D2, or D1 level. We really need to get them to understand that, hey, your wrestling life doesn't have to be done. And by the way, you can make a little bit of money Because you're right, no one does it for the money. After all the driving, the time away from your your wives, girlfriends, kids, hotel rooms, that $250 for a day or whatever like that, you spent that. But that's not what it's about. It's about making sure these kids can have the opportunity to enjoy wrestling and learn the lessons that we've all learned, and I think have turned us into, well, I know I credit wrestling, for anything I've ever done that's been good in my professional life, and sometimes my personal life too. Self-discipline's always a good thing to have. Being able to talk to people too. I talk a lot, right? Well, if I wasn't at tournaments all the time talking with, the other kids about, hey, did you see this kid wrestle, or that kind of stuff, those are skills I might not have developed. And just also the other thing too, I think that's great about wrestling is, like, if you're on the mat, you're the only one that can control if you win or lose, right? But if you're thinking a little bit further and it's a duel, like, everyone else on your team can't do anything, and they're trusting in you 100% that you've worked your butt off. You need to win that match so that they can win and we can win the duel. So it's that aspect of, yeah, I'm a kind of a lone wolf, but the pack's right over here. Yep. So I think that's an important skill too. But yeah, I mean, let's just be honest about it. These officials are doing duels during the week, then maybe a tournament, or sometimes a 2-day tournament. And sometimes the girls have to then wrestle on a Sunday because no one can get officials because they're all tied up during the week doing boys, right? That's wrong, first of all. But the other thing too is if you told me I need to officiate on Tuesday, Friday, Saturday, and then Sunday, you're not getting my best work on Sunday. Right. Like, I'm exhausted, I'm sore, I need to go to the chiropractor. So we really have to figure it out. And it's going to really be up to officials to take it in their own hands and recruit. You're at tournaments all day. You're not working all day unless the AD really screwed you. Hopefully there's some, you have some time with some other officials. We need to be talking to the table workers. They're generally wrestlers or mat maids or female wrestlers. We need to be talking to the coaches. How could we get younger officials, class 2 or class whatever, that can't do high school yet? How could we get them into wrestling rooms to do wrestle-offs and show younger kids, look, you can do this too. You're graduating, cool. Like, take the class. You can do it on Zoom. Laren Weichel and Denny Ole have a Zoom class coming up. That's how I did it. I mean, we are adapting. And so I think the forward thinkers, like the people that I've mentioned, that get it and understand that we have to kind of change our stripes a little bit, because we've all been working remotely on Zoom for 2.5 years since the pandemic started. If we can't get officials to do 75% of what they need to do, that's learn the stuff, pass the test. The 25% is we need to watch them on the mat. We need to observe them. We need to, 2-man it and stuff. But we can get 75% of the way. And I think we're slowly starting to see that in Ohio.